Mary, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's presentation. In our 30 minutes together today, we're going to cover some, hopefully, at least what I think, are some fun and practical tips to promote literacy in the classroom and in the home. And then we're going to follow it up with some of the Pearson instructional tools that we have and assessments to help educators identify strengths and needs to support positive literacy outcomes in all of their students. So let me get to the next slide here. There we go. So as we know, literacy is more than just the ability to read and write. It's that foundation of all of our learning and our communication. And it's critical to our overall success. And that's not only personal success, but success in the world in which we live in. So it's really crucial that we find ways to create and utilize tools that promote and develop these literacy skills in everyone. And as we know, literacy opens the door to limitless possibilities in life. And so I know there's really no reason to preach to the choir this morning of the people that we have on the call on the importance of literacy. So we're going to jump and move right into some of the fun and practical tips that can help promote literacy in the classroom. Now, the possibilities of ideas are endless when it comes to how to help or how to promote literacy in the home or in the classroom. So what I'm about to share with you today are just some ideas that I hope that you can be able to implement into the classroom immediately. Some of these are just ideas that I used when I was in the classroom. Some are strategies I learned from my son's teacher as he struggled with literacy. Some came from some online research that I did on the topic. So some of these may be old news to you. You might be using some of them, but I'm hoping that there are some on the following screens that are new and are of interest of you that you would like to try and start into your classrooms with your students after this presentation. So on the screen here, there's not enough time in our 30 minutes to go through all of the ideas that I have up here. But I really wanted to put them there. So if you have any questions on what to do or what that involves, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and I will go ahead and explain. Otherwise, they might be self-explanatory and might be another idea for you to go ahead and implement. So I'm going to just kind of cover the ones that are bolded. So the first one is read books that have accompanying movies. So this is one of the things that I like to do actually as a parent and as a teacher when I was a teacher in the classroom. And this could be your read aloud book to your students, and it doesn't matter the age. Students at all ages and adults love to hear books read aloud. Adults go to readings. We have audio books on tape that we like to listen to. So students love to hear people read. Plus, it's a great modeling strategy. But basically, with this one, pick a book that has an accompanying movie. Once you're done with the book, show the movie. If they still allow field trips out there, I know that we got to take our students to a field trip and show the movie. But use that as a culminating activity. And then after that, discuss what they like best. Do they like the movie best or do they like the book best? Compare and contrast that book and the movie, finding those similarities and differences. And what's amazing is it really starts to open up your students to the world of books, especially if they're not really strong readers or not ones that want to pick up the books and read on their own. I know that every time that I would talk to a student, or I do this with my nephew and stuff now as my son is older, but it's amazing to keep hearing how they always assume that the movie is going to be different. It's going to provide them more details and everything, and it's always wonderful to hear how much they love the richness of the book, the depth of the details, the movies that they create in their own mind when they're reading it. So it really sparks that love and that interest of more reading, and then they start to, maybe they'll start to look for, if they see a movie coming up that has a book, maybe they'll start to kind of interest them to read those books before the movies. And so that's just one example of to promote literacy, and one of the ones that I love. Another one is, student book reviews. And so here, once a student has maybe read a book, have somewhere for them to post a little review. I know I always go out to my friends to see what books I should be reading next, what ones they've enjoyed. I like to get feedback, or if I'm looking on books or read the reviews. And so encourage your students to write the reviews. That's going to help with their literacy skills of writing, as well as informing students what books to read. So that's another great idea. InfoShare. So InfoShare, as we all again talked, literacy is all-encompassing, so it includes those communication skills as well. So we need to really develop those communication skills. So an idea is to spark an InfoShare with your students. So this is where, as a teacher, you may come to school with an interesting tidbit of something that you read or saw, or a fun fact that you heard maybe on the news or on the radio or something like that. So try to go home at night, kind of think and find this little tidbit, and make a habit of coming to school in the morning and saying, hey, this is what I learned yesterday, or I found out yesterday. Share that with your students. This can kind of start sparking your students to kind of go out and find their own fun fact to share with the classroom. As they're doing that, not only are they increasing their knowledge to learn, and they're looking for different resources, whether it's in the newspaper or on TV or the radio or some kind of research, but then they're coming in and they're sharing it with their friends, their classmates, and their students. So it's building up their speaking skills as well, their communication skills. So that's another fun way to inspire them to go looking for those and discover that new information and to build those communication skills. One that probably some already do, or it's another fun activity, is a word hunt. And so this can be done after you do some kind of lesson. So maybe it's a phonics lesson or a spelling pattern lesson. So once you have taught the information, once the students have learned the concept or learned the pattern, you can have them search for those patterns in familiar books. And so that's going to help emphasize what they learned. They can work in pairs. If you want to make it a little bit more fun and interesting, work in pairs or groups. They can do it individually. Maybe you have a word wall that they put it on. Maybe you try to see if they can find that pattern in a more longer, complicated word, make it some kind of fun and some kind of challenge. Or maybe they put these words just in a kind of a journal or a book. But basically it's just something to, again, get them interested and making sure that they're emphasizing a skill that has been taught and sparking some kind of interest. Going on, one of the things that I noticed, this next point is encourage a variety of reading materials. And so sometimes in our classrooms, depending on, especially as we get maybe in the older age classrooms, our book selection might be more chapter books. And so as we realize that students have different ability levels, they have different interests, we need to really try to find what encourages them to read. And especially if a student has difficulty, only having chapter books might, discourage them. And so I know for my son specifically, and so he was, he was a struggling reader and writer actually. His teachers introduced him to graphic novels. And because he struggled to read, this really allowed him to get more grade level content books without the typical struggle grade he had, because it didn't have all the words and the writing for him. But he was still able to do that, and it interested him. And so he started to gravitate more towards those. He also had hugely benefited from books on tape, and we talked about books on tape a minute ago. But here for a struggling student, so in his middle school, they had to read 45 pages a night out of whatever book they were reading, or if it was a personal choice book. And that was just too complex for him to do. He couldn't complete that with the other homework. And as we know, and if they're struggling with their fluency, they're not really comprehending, and it becomes more of a chore, and it becomes more discouraging than it does encouraging and getting them the love to read. So his teachers helped him find books that had accompanying audio tapes to it. And so this, again, helped him. The requirement was, though, he had to follow along, so it wasn't like he just could listen. He had to follow along word for word in the book. But this allowed him to accomplish the reading, but also it helped him with his fluency. And it helped him open up his mind to different genres of reading and learn what was out there. And so the huge benefit besides that was that by the mid-end of the school year, his comprehension and fluency, he was able to start reading that 45 pages a night on his own. So it really helped him build up his fluency as well. So there's a lot of benefits to exposing your students to different types. And as you can see, I've got comic books up there as well. So just different types of reading materials for our students. Now, a lot of us, I know, do daily journaling, but maybe I have daily journaling fun up here. So this puts maybe a little twist on journaling, and maybe you do this already. But again, the importance of setting aside, and we're getting more into part of the literacy that goes into writing now with some of these next examples here. But set aside a little time for journaling, but maybe give it a little twist. Maybe provide a prompt. Maybe have students write about what they learned in one of their lessons, or something that they experienced on the playground or at home the night before. So you maybe give them something that they think about and write specifically about, instead of maybe just writing about whatever comes to mind, and sometimes in a typical journal that we assign for our students. And so an important part of this piece, though, is that teachers should also be encouraged to also journal at the same time, and maybe even share their journals for some modeling if it's on a specific kind of topic that you had them write on. But that just let students know that journal is just not something that they have to do, but it's something that is important for everybody to do. Another great strategy here are exit slips. And so again, this is going to help. This is going to help with writing, but not only with writing communication, but this is also going to help check for understanding. So this is where teachers are going to provide a question or a prompt, or give a student a prompt to express themselves through written communication. So some of the questions you might give for the exit slips are, what is most important to you, or what's the most important thing that you learned in class today? How would you explain this concept to a friend? If we're having them explain it to a friend, they have to really be concise in their thought and their writing process there, and they have to be clear in their communication. Also, we could ask them, did you understand today's lesson? Why or why not? What questions do you have about today's lesson? So again, this has multiple benefits for students and teachers with that. That kind of goes a little bit with like answer explanations. And so that's where students are going, they're going to write a process of how they determined an answer to a question or how they solved a problem. And so this is great for all subject areas, and this is really, helps provide a more complete response to something that students have learned. And another way to kind of culminate all of these different skills together is write a review quiz. And so this is where students are going to write, say, 5 questions, a 5-question quiz. This will be over material that they have been learning. And then they can exchange that quiz with a classmate or a friend. And as they exchange, they're going to take the other student's quiz, and then they'll go ahead and grade the quiz that they wrote, and then they can discuss those correct answers for the one who took their quiz. So we're getting them to think about, what's important. We're having them understand the information, so we're building up that comprehension and what they've learned on the topic that they learned. We're having them write concise questions that obviously have to be communicated very, very well so that the other student can understand those. Then they're taking those quizzes, and then they're discussing the answers. So it's a lot of benefits in one here, promoting literacy on many different levels. So these are just some of the areas, as I said, for promoting literacy in the classroom. There's so many more. Hopefully, some of those give you some good ideas that you can go into your classroom to do. Again, if there was any that I didn't cover that you have questions on, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and I will try to get to those at the end. If not, I'll respond to you after the webinar. But this next slide here, we're going to go into just a few tips to help promote literacy at home, because literacy really starts at the home. We're hoping that parents are really reading to their students and doing all of talking using appropriate vocabulary to their students before they even come to the classroom, and hoping that they're continuing that as the students are in this in school. So one of the things I want to highlight is a reading zone. And so with the reading zone here, this is really a time where you create a time and a space in your home where everyone reads for maybe 30 minutes. And so it's children seeing their parents read. You're reading as a family, and that's going to encourage them to read too. So it's just a way for everybody to take 30 minutes, be together, read together, and that just promotes good habit for students with their literacy. Literacy, as we know, doesn't have to be all about reading. It can be about fun and games too. So here as a family, again, we're introducing some family time, so we're going to play some word games. So word games like Scrabble. So it's going to help with spelling and vocabulary. It's going to be family fun, and so it gives students and families time to be inventive and creative together. And just because there's an adult that might know some more vocabulary words, it doesn't mean that the smartest person or the oldest person is always going to win. This is something I beat my aunt and my cousin, who are brainiacs and obviously older, with 3-letter words when I was younger. So it's that strategy in there too. So it's about having that fun together, and as well as building up those skills. And then finally, for the tips to promote literacy at the home, the last one I'm going to talk about are pen pals. And so pen pals is a concept, something that we've been, people have been doing for years. And this can be something, with some kind of exchange or something, but it doesn't have to be. It can be with exchanges with family or friends that are not near. And so maybe it's a grandparent or a cousin that lives in a different state. It doesn't have to be a letter, it can be email. But this is, who doesn't look forward to receiving communication or mail? And so again, this is going to help her improve that written communication. It's also going to develop some family unity there. So encouraging some pen pals, and like I said, it can just be with family members that don't live near. So those are some of the ideas and the tips to help promote literacy. I hope you found a few new ideas in there to take away and try into your classrooms. I hope that some of them sounded fun and were different. And so now that we have some ideas to help promote literacy and get students excited about literacy in our classrooms, in our homes, or what do you as teachers have in your toolbox that helps you uncover your students' strengths and needs so that you can support positive literacy outcomes and instruction? And so this is where we're going to move and transition now into what Pearson has. And that Pearson has several assessments and instructional tools that can really help teachers be more effective in the classroom while saving time. So we're going to take a look at a few of these tools that can help you, again, really identify the strengths, the weaknesses, pinpoint where to do instruction for your students. So the first tool in our toolbox that we're going to talk about today is Aimsweb Plus. And so Aimsweb Plus, basically, it's an assessment, reporting, and data management system that is designed to support universal screening with progress monitoring, and it's also good for multi-tier instructional models like RTI and MTSS. So basically what Aimsweb Plus does, it uses brief assessments or measures, and that's to screen and monitor our students' progress so that it can inform instruction for students, and it's primarily for students in grades K through 8. However, it can be used in the high school with those 8th grade measures. Now, as I go through some of these tools in our Pearson toolbox, just giving you very brief, high-level overviews. There's so much more to each one of these resources for you, but just wanted to kind of just put it out there for you as a tool. And if you need any more information, I'll give you a way to contact and get more information on that. So when we look at Aimsweb Plus, moving on with Aimsweb Plus, this is just a quick glimpse of the measures that we have within the program. You can see that there's a wide variety of measures that are available across academic domains and grade levels. All of those are used for benchmark screening, and many also have multiple forms that you can use for progress monitoring. On this screen here, it's just showing that Aimsweb uses a multi-test battery approach for screening, so we combine high-quality curriculum-based measures with standard-based measurements or standard-based assessments. The curriculum-based measures, that's going to assess fluency and automaticity on basic skills that serve as a foundation for success. And then the standard-based assessments, they're really going to assess more of those conceptual knowledge and high-order thinking skills. And that's going to be aligned to current grade-based learning standards. So when you use curriculum-based measures and the standards-based assessment data together, that's going to develop your composite score. And the purpose of the composite score is that composite score is going to help you evaluate overall risk within an academic area. And that's both for individual levels and group levels of students. And so this is really going to be that measure to help know where to pinpoint those strengths and those abilities and identify those students at risk so that you can really help them achieve that literacy proficiency. And so when we look at the ultimate benefit and the ultimate benefits of Aimsweb Plus and the goals of Aimsweb Plus, it's really to provide teachers with the most critical and useful information on your students' skills, identifying those gaps, but in the least amount of time. We want to make sure that we're not assessing students and that the assessment's taking longer. We want to put that time into instruction and them learning. So that's why we wanted to make these very short. So we chose measures that were designed to matter. That means that they're targeting those skills that are most predictive of overall student achievement. They're utilizing measures that are most sensitive to student growth. And again, we're keeping that test administration time as brief as possible. We're getting the most valuable and reliable information in a brief amount of time as possible. So that is our first tool, Aimsweb Plus. Again, that's that universal screener. The next tool that we're going to go over is the DRA2 Plus. And the DRA2 Plus is the Developmental Reading Assessment. It's the second edition of this program. This is it's research-based. It has reliability and validity, but basically the most important thing here is it helps students become independent, successful readers by giving teachers the tools needed to assess reading engagement, oral reading fluency, and comprehension. So there are two main purposes of using the DRA2 Plus, and that's really to first identify a student's independent reading level, and second, to inform instructional needs by providing a clear focus of where to begin each student. So hopefully you can see here again, we're pinpointing exactly where to provide that instruction and that focus. So with this assessment, with the DRA2, and there's also a Spanish component comparable assessment as well, the EDL2. But basically, as a teacher, you're going to observe and assess student performance. This is done with a one-on-one reading conference. And so what's really important with a one-on-one reading conference is that it helps you gain that valuable insight into each one of your students' strengths, ability, and needs by being able to see how they interact with text. See those behaviors. Are they skipping over words? How are they sounding out? Is that where they're struggling? So those different types of behaviors. Once you give the assessment, you're going to be able to analyze that data and use those results to identify those critical points of intervention. You'll be able to also progress monitor them and compare them with benchmark expectations. You're going to be able to drive effective instruction. So you're going to use those results to tailor the reading instruction based on those specific needs that you uncovered with your students. And then you'll be able to manage all of this assessment information with the technology that we have. So we have technology in which we'll group your students and provide that information. And so it's all in one place and easy for you to seamlessly move from the assessment into instruction. So really quickly, it has 3 different assessments. It has benchmark, progress monitoring, and word analysis. The benchmark assessment, again, it's going to measure each student's reading proficiency, and you're going to systematically observe that. So through observation, recording, and evaluation of their performance. This is something that you give to all your students 2 to 3 times a year that encompasses fiction and nonfiction text to help you, again, identify that instructional plan for your students. Then we have the progress monitoring assessment. These are going to be really brief passages, and that's going to be for those students who teachers may need to regularly observe and record those reading behaviors between those benchmark assessment times. So the students who are struggling, you're going to give them the progress monitoring. And then we have the word analysis, and this is going to be a more in-depth tool, and that's going to use to intervene with students that fall below the grade level benchmarks, or for your kindergarten, first grade students. And so with all of these, you're going to have a continuum. This is basically where you choose the descriptors that match the behavior. That's going to help you identify that level and also identify what they're doing well in and what they're struggling in so that you can then guide your focus for instruction. So it's going to then give you this focus for instruction that's going to allow you to determine what the students are going to need to learn next. It gives you a checklist of activities or learning experiences based on those categories and information that you pulled from the continuum. So to summarize really quickly, DRA2 Plus, it's going to be, it's an authentic one-on-one. The benefits of this, it's the one-on-one reading conference with your students. You follow an easy four-step plan, and that easy four-step plan is going to allow you to be able to really stay consistent within each student, within the classroom, across grade bands, across schools within the district. So a four-step plan, all that information is going to be there, and it's going to lead to instruction for you. We have a few more things to go through, quick tools here, so we'll just go quickly through them. And the next one is Right to Learn. And so Right to Learn is a complete online literacy tool, and this is going to be to dramatically improve the writing performance, reading comprehension, and language skills for all your students in grades 4 through 12. And so basically with Right to Learn, it combines essay writing, summary writing, and vocabulary exercises so that it makes it a complete cross-curricular tool that was developed to really reinforce that required interplay between reading, writing, and vocabulary. Now, this is an instructional tool. It's used for both instruction and assessment. So it is a formative assessment. And then when students submit their writings, they get immediate specific feedback on their work so that they can go through that writing cycle, so that they can plan, revise, edit, and rewrite. This allows teachers to assign more writing activities across the curriculum without increasing their time needed for grading. So we're taking the time away from your grading and putting it more into your instruction and facilitating those skills with your students. But again, it's going to help your students develop the reading comprehension, writing skills that are really critical not only for academic success but professional success. So this is really a great literacy tool to not only assess how your students are doing, but then further them into by providing them some instructional feedback and support. This is just a screenshot showing you results. We have many studies showing the results and the growth that students make on this, but just to show you really quickly, on the left-hand side, that's one student who, after multiple attempts and multiple feedbacks, that was the best that they could do at the beginning of the school year, and a few short months later, that's how their scores jumped with just submitting once with no feedback. So it's pretty remarkable in the growth that your students can demonstrate in a short amount of time, because one of the way to really improve the skills, especially writing skills, is through practice and daily practice. And so this allows you to do that daily practice. So with Right to Learn, those benefits there, again, incorporating that daily writing practice across the curriculum, that automated scoring gives them that feedback so they can stay within that writing cycle, and so that you can spend more time on instruction and targeting individual students' skills with those students instead of grading, and then it helps build those literacy skills. So it helps teachers go from feeling like this to this, and more importantly, helping your students soar. Now, I know we're at that bottom of the half hour. I do have two more quick little tools to share with you. So if you have just a couple more minutes, I promise to go through these really quickly. And then at the end, I do have a list of the resources of some of the sites that I got some of this information on. So here, the next tool that we're going to talk about is TEL. This is a test of English language learning. So for those that have some English learners that need to build up their proficiency skills, this is the program for you, the tool for you. It is a research-based, self-administered, automatically scored, standard line test of English language learning. So here, basically with TEL, we use our research on automated scoring technology, and we put it into an ELL assessment. So it's tablet-based, so students can self-administer this test, and it can be used as a screener, diagnostic, and progress monitoring. So first, you are going to, with the screener, identify those students who require services. You can use this in addition to the state screener you might have. The diagnostic assessment is going to be the most robust of the three assessments within TEL. There's a beginning of the year and an end of the year. The beginning of the year is going to be the one that you determine that baseline of proficiency for your students, and then the end of the year one is going to measure that annual growth. We also have the progress monitoring. So this is what's really unique within the TEL assessment, is that it has the progress monitoring capabilities. So without something to measure how our students are working toward proficiency, is our instruction working? Are they making those gains that they need to make throughout the year? So this progress monitoring within TEL helps to determine if they're making that growth. And so it's providing you with that key data to inform your instruction. And so it's really a central piece of understanding and helping those students become English proficient. So we don't have much time. It's broken into 5 grade bands. It is K through 12. There's 21 different items to measure social and academic language. It's not designed to evaluate content, but many of the items were used or developed to measure those academic language. And so you can see that on the screen there. It also helps students or helps schools and districts interpret TEL scores and how their students are achieving in respect to state summative assessments that you might be that they may be taking. And so we have alignments or concordance tables for those following tests that you see there on the screen. So it will help be able to predict how they're going to do when they are ready to take that. So just really briefly again, so it helps you answer these questions. So if you're having a hard time determining the skill levels that your students are entering your class with, if you want to know how your students are making progress in acquiring English language, and how do you do this without taking much time? Again, we want to put more time in instruction, not on assessment. That's with TEL. And so here, it can make a real difference. It lets you quickly monitor the student's progress towards those standards throughout the school year. All right. And our last tool really quickly is our grade. This is the group reading assessment and diagnostic evaluation. It's a normed reference diagnostic assessment. It's given before instruction to drive instruction. So it's going to determine what those developmental skills students have mastered and where they need instruction or intervention, or where they require maybe enrichment. It's a complete solution for pre-K through adults. It's going to lead the students through the instructional cycle. So this is just kind of showing you what those areas that are being assessed are. Going quickly. Some of the benefits on here, again, it's going to save you time because you can do whole group administration. It's going to lead you directly to instruction and intervention. You can track your students' growth from pre-K through adults. You can, communicate assessment data and move your students through the assessment cycle easily and quickly, showing their progress. So it's untimed, so you're testing power, not speed of the program. We do have an online version of this. The online version is for grades 2 through 12. It is digitally administered version. So the benefit of this is that it's capturing those students' information, and the assessment data will be available to you immediately. So there's no hand scoring or Scantron scoring or whatever with the paper and pencil version, which was the original version I just showed you. So you're going to get paperless administration, automated scoring, and you're going to get reports available within minutes. The one thing to note on this one here is that the normative data will be different on the online version. So, all right, so there's help you determine the placement, analyze strengths and weaknesses. Those are all the benefits of these programs. And so, wow, so thank you for the extra few minutes on that. I hope today, so that's just some of the tools that we have in the Pearson toolbox to help teachers in promoting literacy skills and making sure that the students are making those gains. That was in conjunction with the promoting literacy and different activities that you can do with your schools in the classroom, or students in the classroom as well as at home. I hope you found this to be beneficial. I hope you took something down and are going to be able to implement it into your classroom. I thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I will get to them after the presentation. And if you need more information, you can go to our pearsonassessment.com website, or you can send an email to learningassessments@pearson.com or call the 866-842-7428 number to be put in contact with a Pearson representative. Again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day and upcoming holiday season.